The night was quiet, the neon lights of the gas station casting a dim glow over the empty street. Steven Seagal walked in, calm and unassuming, wearing his signature black attire. He wasn't looking for trouble, just grabbing a drink and maybe a snack before heading home. The atmosphere was peaceful, almost serene. That peace didn't last long. A group of bikers rolled in, engines roaring and leather jackets creaking as they parked haphazardly. Their presence immediately changed the mood. Laughter and crude jokes echoed through the small space, as if the entire room belonged to them. They scanned the bar and the pumps, eyes narrowing as they noticed Seagal standing near the counter. One of them leaned against a table, smirking. "Hey, old man, what are you doing here? This isn't your kind of place," he sneered. Seagal didn't flinch. His calm eyes met theirs, and for a moment, the tension hung thick in the air. He simply replied, "Just getting something to drink." The biker laughed mockingly, not satisfied. "I think you need to learn some respect around here." It was clear, they were looking for a fight. Bystanders started noticing, some whispering to each other. Phones discreetly came out, capturing the brewing confrontation. Nobody moved to intervene yet, they were waiting to see what would happen next. Seagal, however, stayed composed. There was no anger in his voice, no hint of fear. The biker's words bounced off him, like pebbles hitting steel. He stood tall, steady, unshaken. His very presence radiated a subtle warning, this wasn't a man to be trifled with. The bikers, mistaking his calmness for weakness, laughed louder. They edged closer, thinking this would intimidate him. One even took a step forward, flexing his muscles, trying to show dominance. But Seagal didn't move. Not a twitch. Not a flinch. The air seemed to thicken around them, every eye in the bar and at the pumps focused on the tension between the legendary martial artist and this gang of overconfident bikers. And then came the moment that would shock everyone watching. What the bikers didn't know was that they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. The bikers weren't used to being ignored. Steven Seagal's calm demeanor only fueled their arrogance. One of them stepped closer, cracking his knuckles, and said, "You think standing there all quiet makes you tough?" Seagal didn't flinch. He took a slow, deliberate sip of his drink, keeping his eyes on the group. Every movement was measured, every gesture deliberate. It was as if he was already calculating the consequences of their actions, and the bikers had no idea what was coming. "Relax, old man," another biker jeered. "You don't belong here. Why don't you teach us some of that fancy martial arts stuff?" The crowd of bystanders began to notice. Some pulled out their phones, subtle at first, then openly recording as the tension grew. You could almost feel the anticipation in the air, the classic showdown of arrogance versus calm mastery was about to begin. Seagal finally spoke, his voice low and steady. "I'm not here to fight. But you should be careful with who you provoke." The bikers laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Careful," one of them mocked. "We're the ones in charge here." One biker stepped even closer, trying to intimidate him physically. He leaned into Seagal, chest out, expecting fear. But instead of flinching, Seagal remained perfectly still. There was a stillness to him, a presence that made even the boldest biker hesitate for a split second. The biker's smirk faltered. Something in Seagal's gaze hinted that this wasn't an ordinary man. But before he could think twice, the others jeered and pushed him forward again. The crowd was now fully alert. Phones were raised everywhere. Some whispered in awe, "Is that really Steven Seagal?" Others held their breath, sensing that things could escalate at any moment. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Seagal's composure never wavered. He didn't raise his voice, didn't step back. The calm aura he projected was almost hypnotic, a silent warning that action was coming, but on his terms. The bikers mistook his silence for weakness, while the audience quietly marveled at his control. And that's when the first biker, thinking he had the upper hand, stepped too close, maybe just a fraction of an inch too near, and said, "All right, old man, show us what you got. Seagal's eyes narrowed slightly, but he still didn't move. His very posture screamed, "Don't make me do something you'll regret." The air seemed to freeze. The crowd collectively leaned in, waiting. Every bystander, every biker, felt the electricity in the room. This was no ordinary confrontation. The legend himself stood there, quiet, controlled, waiting for the right moment. If you were in this situation, what would you do? Stand your ground or walk away? Comment below, and tell me which country or city you're watching from right now. The bikers, unaware of the respect and fear this man commanded, laughed again, trying to cover up their hesitation. They were about to find out why Seagal wasn't just calm, he was deadly. And when he finally moved, the entire bar would witness the biggest mistake of their lives. The tension in the bar had reached a fever pitch. The bikers were growing increasingly bold, their laughter louder, their movements more aggressive. Each step they took towards Steven Seagal seemed calculated to provoke him, to assert dominance over the man who wasn't showing even a flicker of fear. One biker leaned over the counter, pointing a finger directly at Seagal. "Come on, old man. Don't just stand there like some statue. Show us what you got," he barked. His voice was filled with arrogance, with the overconfidence of someone who thought the world belonged to them. Seagal didn't respond immediately. He remained calm, his stance relaxed but perfectly balanced. He didn't even flinch as the biker took a step closer, chest puffed out, trying to intimidate him physically. Every muscle in Seagal's body seemed dormant yet ready, like a coiled spring, as though at any moment he could explode into action. The bikers laughed, thinking they had read him. One of them moved even closer, grabbing Seagal's shoulder in an attempt to assert physical dominance. The crowd collectively held its breath. Phones recorded every movement, the camera lenses catching every second of the growing standoff. And then it happened. Seagal's hand shot out with a fluid, lightning-fast motion. Before anyone could react, the biker's arm was redirected, his balance shifted, and he stumbled backward. The movement was precise, controlled, and non-lethal, a masterful display of martial arts expertise. The biker hit the ground with a thud, wide-eyed, utterly shocked. The other bikers froze. Their bravado evaporated in an instant. The room, once filled with arrogance and bluster, was now filled with a stunned silence, broken only by the biker groaning from the floor. Seagal's gaze swept over the group, calm and unwavering. "Step back," he said, his voice low but commanding. "This isn't a game. Respect is earned, not demanded through fear or intimidation." One biker, still trying to save face, scoffed. "Ha! You got lucky this time, old man," he shouted, trying to mask his fear. But his knees shook slightly, betraying him. Another stepped forward, thinking they could still overwhelm him with numbers. They underestimated the man in front of them. Seagal moved again, faster than any human instinct could normally process. In a series of smooth, flowing motions, he disarmed the biker attempting to attack him, redirecting him effortlessly to the floor. Each movement was precise, controlled, and devastating in its efficiency. The crowd gasped audibly. Whispers spread, is that Steven Seagal? That's him, the martial arts master." Some people took a step back, unsure whether to intervene or just watch in awe. Every phone camera in the room was capturing history in real time. Despite the physical dominance, Seagal didn't raise his voice, didn't resort to anger or brutality. His calmness contrasted sharply with the chaos he was creating. It was clear, this wasn't about hurting anyone unnecessarily. This was about teaching a lesson, asserting control without ego, and showing what true skill looks like. The lead biker, the one who had started all of this, finally realized the gravity of the situation. His bravado crumbled. "Wait, who are you really?" he whispered, fear creeping into his tone. Seagal didn't answer. He didn't need to. The look in his eyes spoke volumes. One wrong move now, and the consequences would be immediate. The bikers finally began to back off, confusion and fear replacing their earlier arrogance. But Seagal's presence was magnetic, it held their attention completely. The crowd, now fully aware of what had just happened, murmured in awe. The silence was thick with respect and disbelief. Engagement hook. Studio microphone, could you stay calm like Seagal if this happened to you? Type yes if you think you could, or no if you'd panic. Seagal's calm mastery had already made an impression on the audience. What had started as a simple act of intimidation by a group of overconfident bikers had now turned into a full-blown demonstration of power, precision, and controlled dominance. The bikers had no choice but to recognize that their actions had consequences, and that underestimating Steven Seagal was the biggest mistake they could ever make. The crowd continued to record, wide-eyed, sensing that they were witnessing something legendary. And in the midst of it all, Seagal remained calm, a living embodiment of power, discipline, and control. Little did the bikers know, the encounter was far from over. The true lesson, and the biggest shock, was yet to come. The bar had fallen silent. Even the hum of neon lights and the distant roar of traffic seemed to fade into nothing. The bikers, once brimming with arrogance, now stood frozen, each one realizing that they had misjudged the man standing before them. Whispers started to circulate among the crowd. Wait, isn't that Steven Seagal? One brave bystander leaned over and muttered to a friend, barely audible, that's him, the martial arts master, the action legend. The word spread like wildfire. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Phones were now out in full view, recording every second of the standoff. The bikers exchanged nervous glances, the bravado they had carried in just a few minutes ago evaporating like smoke. The lead biker, the one who had tried to provoke Seagal from the start, clenched his fists. His mind raced. No, it can't be, he whispered, almost to himself. His voice carried fear and disbelief. Seagal, still calm, allowed a faint smile to cross his face. Not smug, not mocking, just the faintest acknowledgement that the lesson was sinking in. He hadn't needed to raise his voice or flaunt his fame, his actions had already spoken volumes. The bikers' confidence had crumbled entirely. One of them, trying to salvage the situation, muttered, "It's just a coincidence, he's not really." But the crowd knew the truth. Everyone there, every bystander holding a phone, every person who had been watching from a distance, could now see the gravity of the situation. They weren't witnessing just a physical confrontation. They were witnessing a moment of recognition, the power of experience, mastery, and calm dominance over raw aggression. The bikers shuffled backward, their movements hesitant. The lead biker tried to stand tall, trying to look in control, but his shaking hands betrayed him. We didn't know," he stammered. Seagal's gaze softened slightly, his voice calm but firm. "You should never underestimate someone based on appearances or age. Respect is not something you demand, it's something you earn." The room remained silent. The lesson hung in the air heavier than any punch or kick could have landed. The bikers' faces were pale, fear and embarrassment painted across every expression. They had come in thinking they were intimidating a stranger, but instead, they had confronted a legend, a man whose reputation for calm mastery preceded him, yet they had been oblivious until now. One biker whispered urgently to the others, "I think we're in over our heads." Seagal didn't need to respond. His calm stance, his measured breathing, and the quiet intensity of his eyes said everything. He was in control, and they were completely exposed. The crowd leaned in closer, sensing the dramatic shift in power. Phones recorded every second. Some bystanders whispered to each other, in awe of Seagal's restraint. He didn't even have to strike again, just look at him. The bikers, now fully aware, began taking cautious steps back. Their arrogance had dissolved completely, replaced by a mixture of fear and disbelief. For the first time in their lives, they realized that appearances could be deceiving, and that one wrong move could have lasting consequences. Seagal, still calm, took a single step forward. Not to attack, but to assert presence. The simple act sent another wave of unease through the bikers. Their eyes darted nervously, the energy in the room was electric, the lesson sinking deeper into their minds. The realization was complete. The bikers had been humbled, not by shouting, not by rage, but by presence, calmness, and controlled mastery. Whispers continued to ripple through the crowd. "That's Steven Seagal, no way, it can't be, I can't believe they just messed with him." And at that very moment, it became clear, the bikers had made a fatal mistake. They had chosen confrontation over caution, arrogance over awareness, and now they were paying the price, mentally, emotionally, and socially. The crowd, fully aware of what had just happened, watched in stunned silence. The bikers, now humbled, tried to regroup, but their energy had shifted irreversibly. Seagal, maintaining his calm aura, simply observed. No gloating, no boasting, the lesson had been delivered. The bikers had finally understood who they were dealing with, and the crowd, had witnessed something unforgettable. The stage was set for the final domination. The bikers' mistake had been revealed, but the ultimate lesson had yet to be delivered. The atmosphere in the bar had changed completely. The bikers, who had entered with swagger and bluster, now stood frozen, their bravado stripped away. Their laughter, once so loud and confident, had vanished. Every eye in the room was on Steven Seagal, the man who had already humbled them without a word, without even raising his voice. Seagal's calm aura radiated authority. He didn't move hurriedly, didn't shout or make threats. Yet in that stillness, there was a palpable force, a presence so commanding that even the toughest biker instinctively hesitated. It was the kind of quiet dominance that only decades of mastery could produce, experience, precision, and control all wrapped into one unshakable figure. The lead biker, who had been the most aggressive from the start, tried to regain some sense of control. He stepped forward, voice shaking slightly, trying to mask his fear. "All right, we get it. No need to get rough," he muttered, his bravado failing him completely. Seagal's eyes never left him. With a slow, deliberate movement, he shifted his stance, demonstrating a subtle but unmistakable readiness. It wasn't an attack, not yet. It was a message: any aggression would be met with precise consequences. The lead biker's stomach tightened. He realized that one false move could cost him far more than just embarrassment. Another biker, thinking to rally the group, reached towards Seagal, perhaps attempting to intimidate him again. But Seagal was faster than thought possible. With a fluid motion, he redirected the biker's hand, sending him staggering backward without a scratch. Every movement was a lesson in control, precise, efficient, and undeniable. The crowd gasped. Phones captured every detail. No one dared intervene. The remaining bikers began to exchange nervous glances. The reality of the situation hit them like a brick. They had not only misjudged the man, but they had also underestimated his skill, patience, and strategic awareness. They had walked into a situation thinking intimidation would win, and they were now completely outclassed. Seagal's voice broke the silence, low and calm. "I am not here to hurt anyone unnecessarily. But let this be clear, disrespect and arrogance have consequences. You cannot bully, threaten, or provoke without understanding the cost." The bikers took a cautious step back, their muscles tense, their faces pale. The bar, once filled with casual chatter and laughter, was now silent except for the subtle hum of tension. Every bystander, wide-eyed and holding a phone, sensed history unfolding before them. One of the bikers, trembling, whispered, "I think we really messed up." Seagal's gaze swept over the group once more. He didn't need to strike again, the lesson was already clear. One precise movement, one perfectly controlled redirection of aggression, had sent a message stronger than any words could. And yet, he maintained composure. There was no gloating, no arrogance, only quiet authority. The crowd began to murmur in awe. "That's Steven Seagal, there's no way they could fight him, I can't believe they thought they could take him on." Phones captured every angle, Seagal's calm, the biker's fear, the electric tension in the room. Seagal then took a single, deliberate step forward. Not aggressive, just purposeful. The bikers instinctively recoiled, instinct and survival taking over. The lead biker's face drained of color. The lesson was undeniable: any further foolishness would be met with immediate and precise consequences. The bikers had been humbled, their arrogance shattered. Steven Seagal's calm dominance wasn't just physical, it was psychological. He had turned fear into respect, aggression into understanding, and a foolish challenge into a powerful lesson. No one in the room moved. No one laughed. No one dared speak. The bikers' mistake had been revealed in full, and the consequences of their arrogance were etched into their minds forever. Seagal's presence, quiet yet commanding, remained the focal point. The bikers were left with only one choice: retreat, reflect, and remember the lesson, that appearances could be deceiving, and true mastery did not require shouting or aggression. The stage was now set for the final humiliation and resolution, the moment when the bikers would fully recognize the magnitude of their mistake, and the crowd would witness the ultimate payoff. The bikers' confidence had crumbled completely. What had started as a show of bravado had turned into a lesson they would never forget. Every move they made seemed hesitant, awkward, and forced, as if the weight of their mistake pressed down on their shoulders. The bar, once filled with rowdy energy, now held an almost reverent silence. Steven Seagal stood at the center, calm and composed. His presence alone commanded the room. He didn't need to shout, he didn't need to raise a fist, the quiet authority radiating from him was enough to keep the bikers on edge. Every step he took was deliberate, controlled, and measured. The bikers instinctively backed away, each one realizing, bit by bit, the magnitude of their mistake. The lead biker, trembling, tried to speak, his voice shaky and small. "We didn't mean any harm." Seagal's eyes narrowed slightly, piercing yet calm. He didn't yell or berate them. Instead, he used the power of silence. The weight of his gaze made it clear: their arrogance, their mockery, their disrespect, it had all been noticed, and it would not go unchallenged. The other bikers shifted nervously. Some whispered apologies to each other, while others simply stared at the floor, trying to escape the attention and shame. The realization that they had confronted a legend, someone whose reputation was not just earned but legendary, hit them like a wall. With slow, deliberate precision, Seagal moved closer. Not threatening, but commanding. One biker tried to regain a shred of bravado, stepping forward slightly. Seagal's hand extended in a simple motion, redirecting him effortlessly to the side. The biker stumbled backward, the crowd gasping audibly. It wasn't violence for violence's sake, it was a demonstration of control, dominance, and precision. The audience, captivated by the display, whispered among themselves, "That's insane, he didn't even hit them hard, and they're terrified. He's not just a martial artist, he's a force of nature." Phones captured every moment. The fear, the respect, and the unshakable calm of Seagal were broadcasted in every angle. Seagal then spoke, his voice low, calm, and unwavering. "Respect is earned, not demanded. You cannot bully or provoke without understanding the consequences." The bikers' faces paled further. Their embarrassment was complete. Every attempt at intimidation had failed. Every ounce of arrogance had been stripped away. They had come thinking they could intimidate a stranger, and instead, they had been publicly humbled by a man whose calm presence outweighed their aggression tenfold. One of the bikers whispered urgently to his friends, panic in his voice, "We need to leave, now." Another nodded, swallowing his pride, while the lead biker took a step forward, finally acknowledging the truth. We were wrong," he admitted, voice barely audible. Seagal didn't mock them. He didn't need to. The lesson was clear. His calm authority had done more than any verbal warning could have. Humiliation had been delivered without cruelty, respect had been maintained, and the audience had witnessed a masterclass in restraint, power, and psychological dominance. Engagement hook. Studio microphone: "If you were one of these bikers, would you apologize or silently retreat?" Comment below, type apologize if you'd admit your mistake, or run if you try to save face. The bikers slowly shuffled toward the exit, heads down, pride shattered. Every step was a reminder of their misjudgment, every glance a silent acknowledgement that they had faced someone far beyond their expectations. The bar's crowd watched, whispering, recording, and sharing the moment with wide-eyed amazement. Seagal remained in place, calm and collected. There was no celebration, no gloating. He had demonstrated the lesson, and that was enough. Respect had been earned, dominance had been asserted, and arrogance had been humbled. As the bikers disappeared into the night, their defeat complete, the crowd erupted into applause and whispered reverence. They had witnessed more than just a confrontation, they had witnessed a legend in action, the embodiment of calm mastery and controlled power. The stage was now perfectly set for the final chapter, the aftermath, where the story would go viral, and the lesson would echo far beyond the bar. The bikers had vanished into the night, their pride shattered, their arrogance replaced by a deep, uncomfortable respect. The bar, once filled with loud laughter and reckless energy, was now buzzing with whispers of awe and disbelief. Everyone present had witnessed something extraordinary, a lesson in power, composure, and dignity that would not be forgotten anytime soon. Phones continued to record as bystanders shared clips on social media, tagging friends and uploading videos to platforms worldwide. Within hours, the incident began to go viral. Thousands of people were watching the confrontation replayed over and over, amazed by Seagal's calm mastery and the complete turnaround of the situation. News outlets picked up the story the next morning. Headlines screamed with fascination, "Legend humiliates aggressive bikers with calm authority, Steven Seagal turns confrontation into masterclass in respect," and "Bikers learn the hard way, don't mess with Steven Seagal." The world watched in awe. Comment sections were flooded with messages praising Seagal's restraint, his composure, and his undeniable skill. People marveled that he had never raised his voice unnecessarily, never struck out of anger, yet had completely controlled a group of aggressive bikers. The viral reaction wasn't just about martial arts. It was about respect, humility, and the power of presence. Seagal had shown that real strength doesn't come from aggression, yelling, or dominance for the sake of ego, it comes from calm, deliberate, and controlled action. He had turned a potentially violent confrontation into a life lesson for everyone involved, including the bystanders who had captured it all on camera. Meanwhile, the bikers faced their own viral embarrassment. Clips of their initial arrogance and subsequent fear were circulating online, showing them retreating from the man they had underestimated. Comments from viewers ranged from amusement to admiration for Seagal, but the message was clear: arrogance has consequences, and disrespect can backfire spectacularly. Seagal, true to his nature, did not gloat. In interviews, he spoke softly but firmly about the incident. "I don't wish harm on anyone. I simply act with awareness and respect." This was a lesson for them, yes, but also a reminder that we should never underestimate anyone based on appearances. True strength is about control, not ego. His words resonated with millions around the world. People from all walks of life shared the story, inspired not just by his martial arts skills but by the way he handled the confrontation with dignity and intelligence. Social media exploded with admiration, memes, reaction videos, and discussions about lessons in humility and respect. If you believe no one should be underestimated or judged by appearances, type respect in the comments, and share this story with someone who needs to see it. How would you have reacted if you were in Seagal's place? The incident became more than a viral video, it became a modern legend. People were inspired to stand calm in the face of aggression, to control their actions, and to handle challenges with dignity rather than fear or anger. In every corner of the internet, Seagal's calm power and the bikers' humbling experience became a story shared across countries, cities, and generations. For the bikers, it was a night they would never forget. For the crowd, it was a rare first-hand glimpse of true mastery. And for the millions who saw it online, it became a lesson in respect, humility, and the quiet but undeniable power of a man who could turn fear into awe without ever losing his composure. The lesson was simple: yet profound, underestimate no one. Appearances can be deceiving. And true strength lies not in aggression, but in calm, calculated authority. Steven Seagal walked away that night as he always had, quietly, calmly, and with the respect of everyone present, leaving behind a story that would echo for years to come.